What's up, everybody? You're very welcome along to tonight's special show. As you can see, I am joined by the legend that is James Pearce. James, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm really good. I was just saying to you off air, this must be a very, very hectic time for journalists like yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a bit crazy, isn't it? When you've obviously got the games coming thick and fast, but also the transfer window still being open. It feels a bit weird, really, still chasing up potential deals at this time of year. But obviously, with the way that the 2020 has panned out so far, it's the reality of the situation. But yeah, not long to go, thankfully. I think like most journalists, looking forward to that window shutting and then focus purely on the football.
Yeah, sometimes we forget that that's what we're all actually here for, the football. And my God, we've been treated to some amazing football over the last couple of years. I'll get straight into it, James. And look, one deal that has a lot of us puzzled, and I suppose it's for the potential permanent nature of it, is the Raheem Brewster situation. Now, we've all heard that there's links to Crystal Palace and Sheffield United. We heard about the dossier that Chris Wilder apparently put together to show the progression that he would hopefully have with Raheem Brewster. What's your take on the latest with this one?
Yeah, well, my understanding at the moment is that talks are ongoing, that there's no deal that's on the verge of getting completed. I think you mentioned then some of the clubs that Liverpool have held discussions with. The main two, I understand it, are Sheffield United and of course Crystal Palace. And I think it's just one of those that I think it's never been the case this summer that Liverpool were looking to shift Raheem Brewster on. I think it was more, initially it was very much a, do we keep him as a squad player or do we loan him out for the season? And then I think it became pretty clear that Raheem was, having had a taste of regular first team football at Swansea, very keen to play regularly. And, he probably looks at it and thinks, well, what kind of opportunities am I going to get at Liverpool, this season or even next season with, especially with Jota coming in, and you look at the progress of Minamino, and of course Firmino is so integral to this team. So I think it suddenly became apparent that Liverpool would be prepared to do a permanent deal if the numbers were right. But I think that's the big thing at the moment is Liverpool don't feel under any pressure whatsoever to sell. They will only do a deal for Raheem Brewster if they think it's right for the club. And my understanding is you're talking £20 million deal plus Liverpool having that option of a buyback clause, which of course gives them that security if he does leave and absolutely light the place up in the next couple of years.
Sometimes we forget about the human aspect of transfers, James, don't we? We look at it purely from a club basis. And as you touched on, Raheem Brewster went to Swansea. I think he's got 11 goals, something like that, in 21, 22 appearances. Did very well. And from rumoured interest from a lot of clubs to take Raheem Brewster, whether it be on loan or in a permanent deal. So, yeah, Raheem needs to play. I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I think a little, myself and a few other Liverpool fans I wasn't scared, but a bit hesitant when we heard potential. Sorry, I think I might have cut out there for a second.
Sorry, yeah, I think I can hear you again now.
Sorry, James, I cut out there for a second. I think it's just the potential of the permanent basis of a deal that worried a lot of Liverpool fans. But as I was talking to Paul Tompkins about this as well, Liverpool are being very coy about making sure for the likes of Raheem Brewster, if he did move on, there would be that buyback clause.
Yeah, and I think all the way along that has been Liverpool's stance that they will only contemplate a permanent deal if they did have that buyback clause, because I think they do want that security of knowing that if he does kick on as I think a lot of people expect him to, that they could bring him back. And I think probably that buyback clause certainly complicates doing a permanent deal, because you can understand it if you're the buying club thinking, well, actually, there's a risk attached to paying that amount of money for a young player who's very gifted but still relatively unproven at Premier League level. So I think that wouldn't be for everyone paying that kind of a money and also committing to that buyback clause. But if Sheffield United or Palace or someone else emerges from the fringes and is willing to meet those demands, then I'd expect that one to happen before the deadline. But if not, Raheem Brewster will be kind of part of the squad going forward. And I think what's become clear in the last kind of week or two is that Klopp and Michael Edwards are preparing to operate with a bigger squad this season. We often talk about Klopp liking a real tight-knit group, but I think he realizes the reality of this season with the schedule. We've seen already this week with Thiago losing him to a positive COVID test, that there's so many potential hurdles that could dent your resources, especially with the season being compacted into such a short period, that you are going to need more bodies. So I think for Brewster and for Wilson and for Grujic, I think they're three that clearly, if the deal was right for Liverpool, they would sell them before the deadline. But I don't see any situation where it suddenly becomes like a fire sale and Liverpool are willing to shift any of those on at knockdown rates, because I think Liverpool would think, well, actually, with the schedule we face, we're better off keeping hold of them if the money isn't right for us.
One other player that I think you touched on there that is on the fringes and has been linked with a move is Harry Wilson. Burnley were the latest club that I'd read of interest. Any new information on that one, James? The club looking to move Harry on? And for me, on this one, we talked about the human aspect. If anybody, he deserves to put down some roots. He deserves to go and establish himself and have a career. He's had a lot of loan spells. So whatever happens, personally, I always thought this was a big summer for Harry Wilson. Yeah,
well, I know for a fact that when he went out on loan to Bournemouth, the agreement between him and Liverpool was that there wouldn't be another loan after that. That was either he would come back to Liverpool and be given and would have earned his opportunity to show what he can do, or he would be moved on permanently. Because as you say, I think at this stage in his career, there's an acceptance all round that he does need to put down some roots rather than be keeping on being moved around on loan spells. So Liverpool aren't a million miles away, I don't think, with the negotiations they've had with Burnley. I think Burnley offered 12 million plus 4 million in add-ons. I think Liverpool want 15 million guaranteed. And then the add-ons would probably push that up closer to the 20 million mark. So my understanding as of earlier today was that that Burnley hadn't come back and met those demands as of yet. And similar to Brewster, the club stance is that if they do, then okay, great, there's a deal to be done. But if not, then Harry Wilson will become part of the setup this season. But I think when you look at Burnley, I think he would be a fantastic signing for Burnley. And when you look at those numbers, they're not too far away, are they? So you'd imagine that common sense would probably dictate that Burnley would come back to the negotiating table.
Interesting. Definitely one to keep an eye on before next Monday. One more, James, with regards to potential outgoing. So this is a bit of a curveball. It's one that many of us probably thought was resolved, and that's the situation with Gini Wijnaldum. Obviously, Barcelona have moved. There's the obvious there. We all thought that maybe with Thiago coming in, Gini may move off. But do you know anything with regards to potential contract extension for Gini, or maybe of interest from Barca before the window closes?
No, nothing new on Wijnaldum that I'm aware of. No, I mean, I think Liverpool were braced for an offer from Barcelona a few weeks back in the aftermath of Koeman taking over there. But then Wijnaldum came back from international duty with the Netherlands and had positive talks with Klopp, and he made it clear he wasn't looking to engineer a move or push for a move, and Klopp was very much happy to keep him on board this season. So no, again, my understanding is that Liverpool certainly expect him to stay put for this coming season. I still don't sense that there's a massive amount of expectation at the moment that he will sign a new contract. I think, at the moment, probably the most likely scenario is that he'll stay for this season and go on a free next summer. But as we all know, things can change so fast in football, and I think what we can deduce is the fact that he's been picked for those opening 3 Premier League games shows you what Klopp thinks of him and what Klopp makes of his attitude. Because if he was in any way distracted or taken his foot off the gas because of his contract situation, there's no way he would have been thrown into those games. And I don't think anyone watched that game against Arsenal on Monday night would would question Wijnaldum's commitment to Liverpool. And I still really hope over the course of this season that that they can get together and agree a compromise on the length of the deal and the terms that he's after, because I just think he's such an underrated player. He went out so versatile, such a selfless team man, and I'd certainly love to see him stay at Liverpool beyond this season.
Yeah, I echo everything that you've said there, and I've yet to see a Liverpool fan that doesn't hold Gini in high esteem for the reasons that you've rightly pointed out. I want to just quickly ask you about my fellow countryman, Caoimhín Kelleher. I've often wondered, it's very difficult for the young keepers to progress through the system at Liverpool. Have you heard anything maybe on plans for Caoimhín?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's been up in the air with Kelleher this summer, because Liverpool weren't quite sure what was going to happen with the other goalies. I think until relatively recently it had been very quiet in terms of interest for Loris Karius, and I know at one stage there was a thought, well, if Karius isn't kind of prepared to go, and if there isn't a suitable offer, either permanent, does he almost stay as the number 3, and then that gives you the license to loan Kelleher out. As it is, of course, Union Berlin came in for Karius. He's now gone out on loan. Grabara's gone to Denmark on loan. So I think the most likely scenario is that he probably does stay put until January at the moment, because as we know, Klopp insists on operating with 3 kind of I suppose established isn't quite the right word, because you wouldn't necessarily describe Kelleher as that, but 3 kind of keepers he feels he can really depend on. And of course, Andy Lonergan had that kind of 3rd spot last season, and he left as a free agent. So I think the only thing that would change that is Marcelo Pitaluga, the young Brazilian they've brought in. He had to self-isolate for a couple of weeks after his arrival from Brazil. And I know, the plan is to integrate him into the senior setup. I think they're very keen for him to train on a daily basis with Alisson, his fellow countryman. So I suppose it's just a case of whether they feel that could he potentially be regarded as a number 3. But he's very young. He's only 17 years of age. So at the moment, I'm not aware of any kind of prospective loan for Kelleher before the deadline.
Now, James, I want to talk about the players that we have brought into the clubs, the one that we can celebrate having here. And I would guess that yourself and myself aren't too far apart in age, James. And I think the signing of Thiago, for me, and I wanted to get your take on this, it is a very unusual signing for Liverpool Football Club to make, in the sense that he is 29, right at the peak of his powers. I understand fully that his contract situation played into this a bit, but this really is a statement signing from Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and I think, I think it's difficult to try and compare it. I think to a deal that Liverpool have done previously, in terms of going and buying an absolutely world-class player who's at the absolute peak of his powers. Because certainly under Jurgen Klopp, we've been very lucky to witness a lot of world-class talent on that stage, but they've effectively been elevated into that world-class bracket by working with Klopp. They haven't arrived regarded in those terms. Certainly, people questioned the wisdom of bringing in Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, even Virgil van Dijk hadn't done it at the absolute peak level and won big prizes before he came to Liverpool. Same with Alisson. But yeah, when you think, like most Liverpool fans, you watch the latter stages of the Champions League last season, and the wow factor surrounding Thiago in terms of the influence on games, and just the range of his passing, and you just think right the way through you thought, I really hope this deal does happen. I doubted at times whether it would, because of course it dragged on, and I think it was very clear from an early stage that Thiago's heart was set on Liverpool, that Bayern felt that would be where he would go, but you still have to have a deal done between the two clubs, and for a long time, there wasn't that in place. So it is a very much a big switch away from the club transfer policy of investing in young talent and then kind of developing them. But I just think when someone like Thiago is on the market for what was a ridiculously low fee because of his contract situation. I think you have to make an exception. I don't think we'll suddenly see Liverpool completely ditching that transfer policy. I think you only have to look at the Jota deal to say that that's probably much more in line with the way that Liverpool have tended to do their business. But yeah, I think you look at Thiago against Chelsea and just the way in which he's just so calm and composed on the ball. And I think as Klopp said himself, he'll give Liverpool another dimension because if there has been one thing missing, and it is real nitpicking, really, it would be that real creativity from the centre of midfield, and he'll certainly give Liverpool that going forward.
You touched on the Jota deal, and I love these crazy ones that come out of nowhere once in a while. And a lot of us were looking towards perhaps Sarr from Watford. There was interest there, rumoured from Liverpool. And then all of a sudden, much like the Fabinho one, and I think, if I'm correct, it's George Mendes, the same agent involved in both deals. And they kept this one rather quiet, James. But as soon as I heard it, I just thought to myself, that's a Klopp player. That's perfect. And then, of course, you go on and hear the research Pep Linders did and the glowing references he was given from Portugal. He's a pressing machine, I believe Pep Linders described him as. This, to me, James, is an incredible piece of business. Again, the structure of the deal, great credit to Michael Edwards and the club for the way they went about it. Just a fantastic piece of business. I don't know what else to say other than brilliant. It just makes so much sense.
Yeah, he's an exciting player. I think there are parallels with probably him compared to when Liverpool went and signed Sadio Mane in terms of you'd probably admired him from afar, but and I think with Mane you probably thought could he do it on a regular basis? I think that probably what had maybe put off some other absolute top teams from really making a move for him, and similarly with Jota, I think whenever I've watched Wolves, I've always thought there's something about him. He's quick. He's got that work rate. He's got the skill. He makes things happen, and I think he's got like a real edge to him as well. I think he was. I like that about him, and I think we saw that the other night when he came on against Arsenal. That straight away he was looking to make things happen. And you're right. Yeah, that deal did really come out of nowhere in the space of 24 hours. Ismail Azar was for a long time regarded as Liverpool's main kind of attacking target. We knew that they were desperate to try and kind of ease the burden on the front three of Salah, Mane, Firmino, and probably try and address that issue that I think a lot of fans have long since talked about, that there was too much of a drop off when one of the front three wasn't out there. And yeah, I think it was similar. I guess in a way they were similar as well to what happened with Jamal Lewis and Tsimikas in terms of Liverpool almost were working on two deals there simultaneously, and with Norwich, with Jamal Lewis, the demands were just too much. They decided, right, we'll go for Tsimikas instead. And then similarly with Zaha, Watford wanted 40 odd million up front, rising potentially to 50 million with the add-ons, and I think Liverpool just thought, this, considering that Watford had dropped down to the Championship and the window was getting on, it was like, I think they expected Watford's demands to kind of decline, but they didn't. And the Jota deal, I think, just made a lot more sense when you look at the structure of that deal. I think 41 million rising to 45, but certainly a big attraction for Liverpool was the fact that they only have to pay about 10% of that fee up front in the first 12 months. And similar to the Thiago one, I think the upfront payment for that was 5 million. So, and in this COVID world where clearly revenues have taken a massive hit, Liverpool have had to be creative and try and find ways to still bring in players without that kind of big pot of money to dip into initially. And Michael Edwards has certainly done it again with those two big deals he's pulled off.
He certainly has. And another part of the Jota deal, well, it was interlinked with that deal, was, of course, Kylian Hoover going in the opposite direction. And it goes to show you, again, a surprise. I think a lot of us were expecting him to stay at the club. He certainly, of the arrivals of himself and Sepp van den Berg, he certainly seemed to have gotten more minutes. I know initially he was a right back and he can play at centre back. But again, when you think about that deal from a Wolves perspective, that is exactly the type of player that Nuno needed to bring in to replace Matt Doherty. So fantastic business again for Michael Edwards there.
Yeah, well, especially when you think it was probably only 2 years ago that Liverpool paid £90,000 for Kylian Hoover. I know Ajax were absolutely fuming to lose him at the time, and yeah, I suppose probably mixed emotions a little bit. I guess when I heard that deal had been done, because I really liked Hoover. I thought absolutely bags of potential, and I hope that one day we might see him as a centre back when he probably grown a little bit older and a bit bigger, as opposed to a fullback. But I think his immediate future will certainly be out wide. And I think for him, he looked at it and thought, the development of Nico Williams over the past year has knocked him down the pecking order. It didn't help Hoover that he had some injury problems last season. He missed a chunk of the season as well with the Under-17 World Cup. So I think he was keen to get away. That was a big thing with the Hoover thing. I don't think that was not one where Liverpool were looking to shift him on. I think him and his representatives made it clear that they were concerned about the pathway, knowing full well that he's as if trying to get past Trent isn't bad enough. Then you've got Nico Williams as well, who was clearly just signed a new long-term contract with Liverpool, which showed where Klopp regards Nico Williams in his estimation. So yeah, I hope Kylian Hoover does well at Wolves. I think he will prove to be a really good signing, but you'd also have to say, fantastic business for Liverpool to get that kind of fee for a player that, like as I said, cost £90,000 2 years before.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Now, there's been a load of questions in the chat that I wanted to put to you. You've heard them all a million times. I have to ask them to you, James. Sancho, people want to know what's going on there. And if United don't get that over the line, do you think there's any interest in Liverpool moving forward?
What, in this window or?
No, in the long term. Obviously not in this window. Right. I mean, if he didn't sign for United in this window, do you think that Liverpool would be sniffing around perhaps next summer?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it's certainly not on the radar at the moment. I think, we know full well that Klopp's a massive fan of his, but I think it would all depend what happened in that striking department. That because at the moment it's so well stocked, isn't it? I think I would only see Liverpool even contemplating a deal for Sancho in summer 2021 if they were looking to replace a frontline attacker, because I think you only have to look at the numbers involved, that especially when you've just brought in Jota, you've got Minamino as well, who I think has come on absolutely massively in the last 3-4 months. There's been a lot of debate about what happened with Divock Origi, but I'm not expecting him to go anywhere before the deadline that's coming up. So yeah, I think it will become a talking point maybe if he does stay put at Dortmund for this season. But yeah, I wouldn't get too excited about that at the moment.
I'm just enjoying sitting back and watching Manchester United fans' heads melt. It's absolutely brilliant. They are preying on Fabrizio Romano's every word at this moment in time, and it does make me smile, James. 2 quick ones before you go. Ousmane Dembele, there was talk from the Barcelona side that Liverpool made an approach there maybe in June. Had you heard anything on that?
No, that's not aware of anything on that. So, no, I know his name's been linked with Liverpool a few times, but yeah, I'm not aware that's ever been more than agent talk, I think.
Yeah, it seems to be one of those lazy rumours that just comes back around every single window because Barcelona are seemingly desperate to move some players on and clear up some money. Now, the last one, the big one, James, the one that keeps changing the hashtag, it was 2020, now it's moving on to 2021. Kylian Mbappe. I can never see this happening with regards to his wages and stuff, but I've got to ask you. I mean, my subscribers wouldn't respect me, James, if I didn't ask you. Have we any chance of dreaming here, pal?
I did enjoy some of the. I was reading some of the kind of the headlines. I think it was last week when people were saying that Liverpool retain an interest in Mbappe, and I was thinking, well, yeah, of course. Like, is there a single club in European football who wouldn't absolutely love to have him on board? But yeah, the difference between that and getting that kind of deal done is absolutely huge. I think certainly when you read some of the comments from Mbappe over the last kind of 6 to 12 months, he's clearly a fan, isn't he, in terms of the way Liverpool have gone about things, the style of the team. I think he hasn't hidden his admiration for Klopp, but it's also it's also one of those that you only have to. The finances of that deal would be so difficult to try and pull off. It's not just the size of the transfer fee, and I know you've got the situation where he hasn't signed a new deal yet at PSG, but and then you've got his wages. And what does that do to your carefully managed wage structure in terms of if you're suddenly shelling out 400 grand a week or whatever for him, do you then have Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk and Sadio Mane's agents knocking on the door? So yeah, I think it's such a long way off, and it's so we don't even know at the moment. When are we possibly going to get fans back into Anfield? The Liverpool have been. I think they've had an unbelievably good window this summer in the circumstances. I think some people have said to me like, we're Liverpool kind of almost trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, claiming they didn't really have any money, and it's like, well no, that is the reality that COVID's cost them over £100 million in terms of now what the projection is in terms of lost revenues. It's just that they've had to be very creative and have pulled off some fantastic deals to strengthen the squad. But I'm not sure with the way that the finances are at the moment that Liverpool are realistically thinking they can go and get Mbappe next summer.
Yeah, I never thought it was going to happen myself, but we're allowed to dream as football fans, James. Definitely. And from a personal level, how have things been for you with the Athletic? Obviously, you're settling in now, got your feet under the table. Some great content coming out, by the way. I mean, it's going down really well with not just Liverpool fans, but football fans. How are you finding it?
Yeah, loving it, thanks. Yeah, obviously into the second season working for the Athletic now, and just been an absolute breath of fresh air to work for, to be honest. Having that kind of time and space to kind of really devote to stuff that I want to be writing about, and hopefully that comes through in the stuff. The fact that you're able to have that time to go away and really do more research and speak to more people, and it obviously helps the fact that you're writing about such a successful team, because it is it's a massive honour to be covering Liverpool in this era. When I think about when I first started as the Liverpool reporter at the Echo, not far off 10 years ago, and what kind of state the club was in back then, and you had Roy Hodgson talking about a potential relegation battle and a club on the brink of administration, to the absolute joy of reporting on winning the Champions League and the Premier League, and see the Club World Cup and the Super Cup along the way, and I think the last couple of weeks have been massive for Liverpool, because I think there was a sense of uneasiness going into the season because there hadn't been that kind of show of ambition in the transfer market, and then probably that unconvincing win over Leeds on the opening weekend raised a lot of talk, didn't it, about were standards going to slip? Was there a bit of complacency creeping in? Liverpool hadn't had that kind of real lift that a couple of big new signings gives you, and then bang bang, Thiago and Jota come in. You go to Chelsea, you absolutely dominate them, a team that has spent a fortune this summer to try and get closer to Liverpool. And then you face a resurgent Arsenal, and I thought Liverpool's first half performance against Arsenal the other night was as good as anything probably since Liverpool went and absolutely hammered Leicester City away on Boxing Day evening. They were that good, I thought, especially in the first half against Arsenal, to hit those levels of intensity. I didn't actually think it was possible really in an empty stadium without that kind of without that 50-odd thousand people roaring you on. And especially coupled with the fact, we've seen already City have got problems. We've seen already that it's going to take time for Chelsea's new signings to bed in. United as well, unconvincing. It's been a great couple of weeks, which I think really kind of reaffirms your belief that that this Liverpool team are going to take some stopping this season.
No one's stopping us, James. We're going back to back, my friend. We're going back to back. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to say goodbye to Mr. James Pearce. The links to all of James' work is in the description. I'm going to stay on to answer your questions for a few more minutes. But James, you've given up some of your evening, some precious family time, mate. I sincerely appreciate it. I wish you all the best for the season ahead. And thank you for giving up your time.
No worries. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Take care, James. All the best. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, it is just you and I, so anything that you want to talk about for the remainder of the stream, let me just get that earphone out. And a massive thank you to James Pearce, of course, for giving up his time to come and have a chat with us. We'll have a little chat about the game tomorrow against Aston Villa or Arsenal. Get it right, Craig. James is gone, and all of a sudden you're star shocked, mate. It's all over against Arsenal, obviously, tomorrow night. Part 2, played them on Monday, beat them. Are we going to get a similar one tomorrow? I want to know your thoughts on the score predictions. I want to know your thoughts on the starting 11 and everything in between. I'm just going to move and pop out something here. 1 sec. I need to pop the chat out in a different way. Bear with me, folks. I need to just get this out so we can have a proper natter, because I don't like the chat the way it is, the other one. So here we go. Get the chat out and we'll get going. Sorry, you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, by the way, but at my end, we're all good. How times have changed, Brian Morrissey. Absolutely. I was cringing almost when James mentioned the days of Roy Hodgson, him celebrating draws against Everton. Oh, how the mighty have fallen with regards to other clubs and how we've risen from the ashes like a phoenix. James said that was great, mate. Really enjoyed the chat. Thank you, Jace Roberts, for that one. Do you believe Jadon could be better than Salah? Said, good morning, Britain Clips. I don't know, but what I will always say about players that Jurgen Klopp brings in, it's not unusual to see players like Jadon, like Minamino, like the midfielders that we've brought in that can play in a whole host of positions. Jurgen Klopp does like people to be able to be multifaceted in their approach to the way we play the game. So, yeah, I really appreciate James Pearce coming on as well. Somebody said he wants cheesy chips. Don't be making me hungry, mate. Liverpool 2, Arsenal 0, Jadon and Takumi Minamino to score, said Vishal. I have a feeling we're going to penalties tomorrow night, folks. I've been saying this one all week, and I don't know why. I've just got a feeling that tomorrow night this game's going to go to penalties. Maybe I'm just thinking back to last season, but I mean, another 5-5 wouldn't go astray. The team selection is one that I'm very intrigued with regards to tomorrow, because we've heard that Sepp Vandenberg may be going out on loan. Are we going to see perhaps Billy Cometio start? We know that young Williams is going to start at right back. Are we going to see James Milner at left back, or is he going to play Robertson because obviously Costas Tsimikas isn't available? The midfield is one that I'm interested to see. I'm fully expecting Curtis Jones to start in there. But who partners him? Who are the other two going to be? I want to know your thoughts on this in 10 or 15 minutes or so before we finish up. Pat Moynihan said, great interview. Thank you. I do apologise. I don't know what it is about this particular system that we use for interviews like that, but it seems to be that I drop out at the start of an interview for a couple of seconds, and it's a recurring thing that happens, so I do apologise for that, but I always enjoy catching up with James. Enjoyed the chat with James Pearce. Thank you very much, Liam Granby. Hope we get another 5-5, said Tyler. Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it? It would be great. Interesting as well to think that there's not really much more business going to be happening from a Liverpool perspective in the remainder of this window. There was nothing. I was trying to poke and probe with James there to see if there might be a little shock for us, but and by that I mean a good thing, with potentially another incoming. It looks like the interest in Sarr has been put aside for the time being, at least. Sit back and relax. It's Craig time, said Pat Moynihan. Thank you, buddy. You know I love being on here with you guys, catching up, and I really appreciate you giving up your time, particularly with all the football that's on tonight. German Super Cup, the League Cup, of course. What have we got with Jace? Wow, lovely back screen, Connor. Yeah, tonight's that's just me wallpaper, mate. This is me living room. This is me actually sitting here talking to you without a green screen. Have I ordered my Ric Flair robe yet? No, not yet, mate. I have to put the finances in place for that one. Jace Roberts said, really hoping we see a Jadon, Minamino, Shaqiri front three tomorrow. I'm very similar, Jace, but I'm wondering, mate, maybe we might see Takumi a little bit behind and Harvey Elliott out on the right-hand side. That's what I was thinking about, but I think we're along similar lines there. Vishal reckons midfield tomorrow, Jones, Milner and Shaqiri. Shaqiri was absolutely fantastic, by the way, in this performance against Lincoln. If we get that Sheridan Shaqiri this season, we're in for a treat. And, you know, you don't want to use the old cliche, but it almost would be like a new signing. We've loads more stuff, by the way, coming up on the channel. Delighted to say that the winner of our competition did receive his away jersey, so congratulations to James on that one. He sent the picture today. We've more giveaways coming up. As you can see, Anfield Agenda is closing in on 50,000 subscribers, folks. And I promise you, we're going to do our biggest ever giveaway. Hit 50,000 subscribers. We're already working on the prizes. We've got them piling up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Drop a like on the video as well. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes, but don't forget, tomorrow we'll be back. We'll be doing the game against Arsenal. Complete post-match show, preview, the whole lot. We'll be starting about half an hour before kickoff, so make sure you're with us for that one. Scotty reckons it'll be 2-2 and then Liverpool to win on penalties. Vishal said, been supporting Liverpool for 24 years. This is the best team I've ever seen us have. I tell you what, mate, I can't think of too many better. I mean, this squad that we've got to enjoy over the past couple of years that Klopp has steadily built, absolutely amazing. John Conway, thank you so much for the super chat, mate. Said great interview, Craig. Really appreciate your support as always, John. Limo said, how's tricks, pal? I've got the feeling we'll see Harry Wilson tomorrow night. Listening to James, I don't know. Listening to James there, he seemed to be fairly optimistic about the potential of Liverpool and Burnley coming to an agreement there for Harry Wilson, talking about the fact the valuations weren't too far apart. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see him being left aside, perhaps if that deal's close, because you don't want a chance of him picking up an injury. Azan said we're going to perhaps see a 4-2-3-1 with Minamino in the 10, Origi up top, Jota and Shaqiri on the wings. Again, it's brilliant to have this conversation because I've seen so many different lineups in the chat, and it just goes to show what the level of squad depth is like right now. And James touched on it in the interview as well. This is as strong a squad as I can remember Liverpool having for a very long time, and one that should be well able to go out and compete in the 4 competitions. Elijah John 5 said 50k is huge. Thank you, pal. We're on the road. We'll get there soon. As I said, hit that subscribe button, drop a like as well. The Anfield Agenda podcast will be starting sometime close to the end of the international break, so make sure you keep an eye out for that one as well. Congratulations, Craig. Nearly 50,000. Unbelievable. You deserve every bit of success. Thank you, Annie's Anfield. It's a team effort, as you well know. Without Connor, this wouldn't exist. But most importantly, without you guys, we wouldn't be where we are and we wouldn't be continuing to grow. Nobody would come back if it wasn't for the friendly nature of you guys in the chat. So, as I always say, it's a community effort on here. But thank you, Annie. I really appreciate that. I know your real name, but I don't want to give it away in the chat. Brian Morrissey said, I reckon he's right. Brewster and Wilson are gone. It's going to be a sad one for me if Brewster moves on, even if there is a buyback clause in there. But I suppose it gives us more incentive to wish him well, doesn't it? If there is a buyback clause, Raheem goes and scores a whole heap of goals, then maybe Liverpool will trigger that clause. Curtis Jones, future captain, perhaps. Yeah, perhaps, mate. I don't see why not. He seems to have a leadership mentality to me. He's got all the attributes that you'd want in a captain. Yeah, perhaps. Why not? Good show. Right, what else have we got? You're the best Liverpool YouTuber. Thank you, mate. That means so much to us. Look, the fact we're even in the conversation, do you know what I mean? 2 years old as a channel, it's just brilliant. I'm just taking every day as it comes and smiling from ear to ear. Friendly reminder to everyone, the Champions League draw is tomorrow and so is the League Cup, said Mark Caldwell. Yes, the Champions League draw, I believe, taking place around 5 p.m. tomorrow UK time. Obviously, Liverpool can't be drawn with any teams in pot 1 or any other English sides. Potential opponents, we've got flights of Barcelona in there, Borussia Dortmund. There could be a few tasty ties, so definitely worth keeping an eye on the Champions League draw tomorrow because pot 1, do you know what I mean? Pot 1, where we belong, up there with the real elites. Clinton said Craig's better than Martin Tyler. That's so man. Yes, I am. I will say I am because I'm more positive about Liverpool. So that's just from that perspective alone. Jason Roberts said so many options. Defence still a slight concern for us tomorrow. Really looking forward to seeing who plays and how they do. I want us to win everything. The defence is where I really struggle, Jason, as well, trying to put together a starting 11. Are we going to see Billy Cometio? Will you risk Van Dijk? Will we see Reece Williams come back in? Will we see maybe Joe Gomez get a run? What are we going to do to cover the left-back slot? So many questions, but I think we're going to be in for a great game again tomorrow. Mikel Arteta and Arsenal are going to want some kind of revenge. They've got some very good youngsters as well within their ranks, so it will be an entertaining one and one that I think you guys won't want to miss tomorrow. And I'll be covering it 30 minutes before the game starts, so make sure you've got your notifications turned on for that one. Right, 1 or 2 more questions before we finish up. Connor Crosby's dropped in to say no Napoli this season, and I absolutely echo that sentiment, mate. I'm fed up to the back teeth of Napoli, so yeah, I wouldn't mind giving Barcelona another couple of kickings, by the way, so maybe if we get them in the group stages, we can send them packing and finally put right the result from over in Barcelona, because even though we lost that game 3-0, I'll never understand how we did, because it just was not a 3-0 game. Is Billy fit to play, said Fernando Curran. He certainly took part in training, mate. I did see the photographs and I was asking Connor the same question. Unfortunately, the game has come a little bit too soon for Jordan Henderson. He may be in contention for the game against Aston Villa on Sunday, which of course we'll be covering on the channel as well. But yeah, look, lots of options for the manager, lots of nice headaches for the manager, but I suppose all these will be answered tomorrow. I didn't touch on Marco Grujic with James Pearce, which is somebody I should have touched on. There's talk that Liverpool are entertaining some interest in him before the window closes. We spoke about Borussia Mönchengladbach before, obviously Hertha Berlin as well. There'll be some other clubs around Europe keeping an eye on Marco Grujic, and again, another option for Klopp tomorrow in midfield. So, look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call that one a night. I will see you guys tomorrow for the game against Arsenal. Make sure you hit the subscribe button before you head off. Drop a like on the video as well. If you're watching this back later on, please do let me know your thoughts on everything that I spoke about with James and the stuff we touched on afterwards as well. Most importantly, have a lovely evening. Thank you for joining us, and up to champions.